Captain Elena Vasquez looked out at the stars through the bridge window of the UES Prometheus. The ship moved quietly through space, near the edge of human territory. 50 years had passed since humans first met aliens, and Elena still felt amazed by it all. The Galactic Council had welcomed Earth with open arms. 12 ancient alien races had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, keeping peace between different worlds. When humans finally built ships that could travel faster than light, the Council invited them to join as junior members. Elena touched the crystal pendant hanging around her neck. It pulsed with a soft blue light that matched her heartbeat. The crystal came from her closest alien friend, Commander Thekvar of the Zenthari Defense Fleet. The Zenthari looked like large lizards covered in beautiful crystal scales. Their homeworld, Zentalar, orbited a dying star. "Captain, we're getting a message from the Zenthari patrol ship," said Lieutenant Parks from his station. "Put it on screen," Elena replied. The main screen flickered, showing Commander Thekvar. His crystal scales caught the light as he moved. Even though he looked like a giant lizard to human eyes, Elena had learned to read his expressions over the years. "Elena, my friend," Thekvar said in his deep, musical voice. "Our patrol is quiet today. How goes your watch?" "All peaceful here," Elena smiled. "Any word from the engineering teams on Zentalar?" "Yes. Your human engineers have made great progress on our star stabilization project. We may actually save our sun, after all." Elena felt proud. The partnership between humans and Zenthari had grown strong over the past 20 years. The Zenthari shared their amazing shield technology with humans. In return, human engineers worked to save the Zenthari homeworld from its dying star. It seemed like a fair trade, but not everyone liked this friendship. "Captain," called Ensign Chen from Communications. "Priority message from Earth Command. Encryption level 7. Elena's smile faded. Level 7 meant serious trouble. "Transfer it to my ready room." "Thekvar, I need to take this call." "Of course. We will continue our patrol. May the stars watch over you, Elena. And over you, my friend." Elena walked to her small office behind the bridge. She sealed the door and activated the secure communication system. Admiral Rodriguez appeared on the screen. His weathered face looked tired and worried. "Elena, I'm sending you new orders. The situation in the Council has become difficult." "What kind of difficult, sir?" "The hegemony is pushing harder against what they call primitive species contamination. They think humans and Zenthari are disrupting the ancient order of things." Elena knew about the hegemony. 4 of the older Council races had formed this group. Led by the gas-breathing Vorthak, they lived on gas giant planets and thought they were better than younger species like humans. "Sir, the Zenthari have been Council members for over 300 years. How are they primitive?" "It's not about age, Captain. It's about power and old fears. The hegemony sees how close humans and Zenthari have become. They worry about what 2 allied species might do together." Elena felt cold fear in her stomach. "Are they threatening military action?" "Not directly. But there have been reports about illegal weapons development coming from Zentalar. The Council is investigating." "That's ridiculous. The Zenthari only build defensive shields. I've seen their technology myself." "I know. But politics in the Council have changed. Earth's position is becoming difficult too. Some Council members think we're too aggressive, too unpredictable. So, what are my orders?" Admiral Rodriguez looked directly at her. "Protocol 7. Zenthari homeworld may be under threat. Investigate and report everything you find. But Elena, listen carefully. Do not engage any Council forces. Earth cannot be seen as starting a conflict." "Understood, sir." "Elena, I hope I'm wrong about this. But if something happens to Zentalar, if the worst occurs, remember that Earth's survival might depend on avoiding a war we cannot win." The communication ended. Elena sat alone in her office, staring at the blank screen. She touched the crystal pendant again. Its blue light pulsed steadily, connected somehow to Thekvar's own crystal heart across the darkness of space. Elena returned to the bridge and gave orders to change course for Zentalar. As the Prometheus turned toward the Zenthari homeworld, she tried to push away her fears. The Council had kept peace for thousands of years. Surely they would not break that peace now. But space felt different as they traveled toward Zentalar. Usually, they would pass other ships, traders, patrol vessels, civilian transports. Today, the space lanes seemed empty. No messages came from the usual communication beacons. Even the background chatter of normal space traffic had gone silent. "Captain," said Lieutenant Parks, "we're not picking up any standard broadcasts from Zentalar system. That's unusual." "Maybe their transmitters are down for maintenance," Elena said, but she didn't believe it. The Prometheus flew through hyperspace toward an uncertain destination. Elena stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by, and tried not to think about what silence from Zentalar might mean. The crystal pendant pulsed against her chest, steady and reassuring. Whatever they found at Zentalar, she would face it. She owed that much to her friend, and to the friendship between their peoples. Elena did not know that in a few hours, she would discover how easily 50 years of trust could be destroyed, and how quickly peace could turn to ash. The UES Prometheus dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zentalar system. Captain Elena Vasquez expected to see the usual sight: orbital cities gleaming around the planet, defense platforms protecting the homeworld, and the great shield generators that kept the dying star from burning the surface. Instead, she saw hell. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Parks. Where beautiful orbital cities once floated, only twisted metal remained. The great shield generators lay shattered, their crystal hearts dark and broken. Debris filled the space around Zentalar like a metal graveyard. "Scanners show no active energy signatures from the orbital platforms," reported Ensign Chen. "Captain, there are no life signs from any of the space stations." Elena gripped her chair. The crystal pendant felt cold against her chest. "Scanning now." "Captain, I'm reading massive energy weapon strikes across the surface. The major cities. They're gone." Elena forced herself to stay calm. Her crew needed her to be strong. "Take us closer. Scan for any survivors." As the Prometheus moved through the debris field, the full horror became clear. The pieces floating in space were not just metal and crystal. They were parts of ships, civilian ships, escape pods that had been blown apart, pieces of Zenthari architecture that had once housed families. "Captain, look at this," said Science Officer Martinez. "The weapon signatures, they match hegemony vessels. But according to the Council's official records, Zentalar was destroyed by internal rebellion." "Internal rebellion?" Elena's voice turned cold. "Show me those weapon patterns again." The data appeared on screen. Elena had studied alien weapons for years. These energy signatures came from Vorthak plasma cannons and Nexari particle beams, both hegemony weapons. "Captain, I'm picking up a faint signal from the planet's surface," Chen reported. "It's coming from the capital city ruins." "A distress call?" "No, sir. It's a Zenthari honor beacon. Someone's alive down there." Elena made her decision quickly. "Martinez, Parks, Chen, you're with me. Prepare the shuttle." The shuttle flew down through Zentalar's atmosphere. The sky looked wrong, filled with smoke and ash that blocked out the dying sun. As they descended toward the capital city, Elena saw the destruction clearly. The crystal spires that once reached toward the stars lay broken on the ground. The beautiful gardens where Zenthari families had walked were now craters filled with glass. The government buildings where Elena had attended diplomatic meetings were nothing but rubble. "There," Martinez pointed. "Underground entrance, still intact." They landed near the entrance to the old emergency shelters. Elena remembered Thekvar showing her these tunnels years ago during a diplomatic visit. "We built them during the Star Crisis," he had explained. a place for our people to be safe if the worst happened. The airlock cycled, and Elena's team entered the underground complex. Emergency lighting cast weak shadows on the crystal walls. In the distance, they heard voices. Xanthari voices speaking in low, mournful tones. They found the survivors in a large chamber, deep underground. About 50 Xanthari sat around glowing heat crystals, their scales dim with grief and exhaustion. When they saw Elena, several stood up with hope in their large eyes. "Human friends," one elderly Xanthari said. "You came." "Commander Thekvar," Elena called, looking around the chamber. "Where is Commander Thekvar?" An older Xanthari female approached. Her name was Sekara, and Elena remembered her as Thekvar's sister. "He is here, Elena friend." "He is injured." Elena followed Sekara to a sleeping area where Thekvar lay on a crystal platform. Her friend looked broken. Cracks ran through his beautiful scales, and they no longer glowed with healthy light. His breathing came in shallow gasps. "Thekvar," Elena knelt beside him. His large eyes opened slowly. When he saw her, something like a smile crossed his lizard features. "Elena, I hoped you would come. What happened here? Who did this to your people?" "The vote." Thekvar's voice was barely a whisper. "The Galactic Council voted to pacify Xantalar. They said we were developing illegal weapons. They said our defensive shields could be used to attack." Elena felt sick. "That's insane. Your shields only protect. They can't harm anyone." We tried to explain. But the hegemony convinced the council that we were dangerous, that working with humans made us a threat. Thekvar coughed, and blue blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. "The vote was unanimous, Elena. Even Earth. Your Earth abstained. They abandoned us." The words hit Elena like physical blows. Earth had known this was coming and had done nothing to stop it. "They came at night," Thekvar continued. "Hegemony battle fleets. They demanded we surrender our shield technology and submit to occupation. When we refused, they began bombing the cities. The civilians. They targeted the evacuation ships first. The children's transports. They wanted to make sure none of us escaped." Tears fell from Thekvar's eyes. Something Elena had never seen before. "We were not warriors, Elena. We were gardeners and engineers and teachers. We could not fight them." With great effort, Thekvar reached under his damaged scales and pulled out a small data crystal. "Take this. It contains everything: the council recordings, the vote tallies, the communication logs. The galaxy must know what really happened here." "You're going to be fine," Elena said, but she could see the light fading from her friend's scales. "No, Elena friend. I go now to join my ancestors in the crystal heart of the universe. But you must not let them bury the truth. The Xanthari died. But we died, believing in friendship with humans. Do not let that friendship die with us." Thekvar's hand found Elena's. His scales still felt warm. "Promise me, Elena. Promise me you will not abandon what we built together." "I promise," Elena whispered. Thekvar smiled one last time. The crystal pattern on his scales pulsed once, brightly, and then went dark forever. Elena stood slowly, the data crystal gripped tightly in her hand. Around the chamber, the surviving Xanthari watched her with hope and fear in their eyes. Elena touched her communication device. "Prometheus, this is the captain. Prepare to broadcast on all human fleet frequencies. Authorization code Alpha 77. Captain, that will violate direct orders from Earth Command," came Park's voice from the shuttle. Elena looked down at Thekvar's still form, then at the faces of the survivors who had trusted humans enough to hope they would come. "Do it anyway." Elena's transmissions spread across human space like wildfire. Within hours, every human colony, every ship, every military base had seen the footage from Zentalar. The images of destroyed civilian ships and bombed cities sparked something deep in human nature. Something that had driven them to fight tyrants and protect the innocent throughout their bloody history. On Earth, President Sarah Chen stood in the emergency session room, watching the data streams pour in from across human space. Protests erupted on every world. Military officers resigned, rather than follow orders to stay neutral. Civilian ships began organizing supply runs to Zentalar without government approval. "Madam President," said Defense Secretary Williams, "we're receiving reports from our embassies. The Galactic Council is demanding we arrest Captain Vasquez for violation of communication protocols. And our response? Earth Command wants to recall the Prometheus and court-martial the crew." President Chen watched the footage again. Zenthari children's shelters bombed from orbit. Civilian evacuation ships destroyed while trying to escape. She thought about her own granddaughter, safe in a school on Mars, and imagined alien ships firing on her transport. "No," she said quietly. "Madam President?" I said no. "We will not arrest Captain Vasquez. We will not court-martial heroes for telling the truth." General Hayes stepped forward. "Sarah, we can't fight the entire Galactic Council. Earth has 300 ships. They have thousands. They control the hyperspace routes, the trade networks, all the advanced technology we depend on. I know the numbers, General. But sometimes there are things more important than numbers." President Chen turned to the assembled cabinet. "Activate Project Prometheus. All phases. All sites. Full authorization." The room went quiet. Project Prometheus had been Earth's most classified program, so secret that only a handful of people knew it existed. While humanity played the role of grateful junior species in public, a small group of military scientists had been asking a different question. What if humans weren't the weakest species in the galaxy, but the most dangerous? "Sarah," Defense Secretary Williams said slowly, "Prometheus isn't ready. The weapons systems are still experimental." "Not the weapons," President Chen replied. "The doctrine. Humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being stronger than everything else. We became dominant by being smarter, more adaptable, more vicious when cornered. It's time the galaxy learned what that means." Across human space, secret military installations began coming online. For 50 years, human scientists had studied every alien technology they could access. They had mapped every trade route, every military base, every critical resource the Council species needed to survive. Most importantly, they had studied the Council's greatest weakness. They had been at peace for so long that they had forgotten how to really fight a war. Captain Elena Vasquez received new orders while organizing evacuation efforts for the Zenthari survivors. The message came directly from President Chen. Bypassed all normal command channels. "Captain Vasquez, you are hereby promoted to Admiral and given command of all human forces in the Outer Rim. Your mission: show the galaxy what happens when humans go to war." Elena read the classified files that came with her promotion. Project Prometheus wasn't just about weapons. It was about strategy. Human military planners had spent decades studying something the Council had never experienced: asymmetric warfare. On Zentalar, Elena gathered the surviving Zenthari leaders. "My government has made a decision. We're going to fight back." "Elena, friend," said Sekara, "we are grateful. But humans cannot defeat the Council. They are too many, too strong. We don't plan to fight them the way they expect," Elena replied. "The Galactic Council fights like civilized beings, big fleets, honorable battles, clear objectives. But humans learned something different on Earth. We learned that the biggest army doesn't always win." Elena showed them a holographic map of Council space. "Look at this. The Vorthak need constant supplies of methane gas from their mining stations. The Nexari depend on quantum computers that need specific, rare elements. The whole council system depends on their faster-than-light communication network. You plan to attack their supply lines? We plan to do what humans have always done when faced with a stronger enemy. We're going to make them fight our kind of war. Meanwhile, the hegemony fleet was preparing to move against Earth. Commander Vorthok, of the Vorthok Supremacy, floated in his gas-filled command chamber, confident in his species' superior technology and numbers. The humans will surrender quickly, he told his officers. They are emotional creatures who panic when threatened. A show of force at their homeworld will end this disruption. Vorthok had studied human history, but he had focused on their large wars, the organized armies, the formal battles. He had missed the guerrilla fighters, the resistance movements, the terrorists who had brought down empires with nothing but determination and clever tactics. As the hegemony fleet prepared to jump to Earth, the first human strike teams were already moving to their targets. Small ships, barely more than fighters, slipped through hyperspace toward Vorthok mining stations scattered across the galaxy. These ships didn't carry weapons designed to destroy. Instead, they carried something much worse for a species that breathed methane. Earth bacteria that had been modified to consume methane and reproduce rapidly in zero gravity. At the same time, other human teams began infiltrating council communication networks. They didn't try to destroy the quantum computers that managed faster-than-light messages. Instead, they introduced subtle viruses that would make the computers translate messages incorrectly, just enough to cause confusion. President Chen's final preparation was the most important. She opened a secure channel to the scattered human fleet and sent a message that would change everything. Citizens of Earth, members of the human species. Today we learned that our oldest friends were murdered while we stood by and did nothing. The Galactic Council believes that civilization means order through submission. They believe that might makes right, and that the weak exist to serve the strong. Today, we show them they are wrong. Today, we show them what humans do when our friends are threatened. We don't have their numbers or their technology, but we have something they lost long ago. We remember how to be dangerous. This is not about conquest or revenge. This is about justice for the Zenthari, and making sure no other peaceful species suffers their fate. The galaxy is about to learn why you should never corner a predator from a death world. To our enemies, know this. You wanted to see what humans do when everything civilized is stripped away. You're about to find out. As President Chen's message spread, the hegemony fleet jumped toward Earth, expecting to find a frightened world ready to surrender. Instead, they jumped into empty space and a transmission that would haunt them. The hegemony fleet arrived at Earth, expecting to find humanity's homeworld defended by desperate ships and frightened leaders. Instead, they found only empty orbital platforms and a single message beacon broadcasting in the void. Commander Vorthok opened the transmission, his gas-filled chamber filtering the human words into his language. President Chen's face appeared on his screen, calm and cold. Commander, you came looking for a quick surrender. But humans don't surrender when our friends have been murdered. You want to know where our fleet is? They're visiting your friends. At that moment, across hegemony space, the carefully planned human attacks began. The first target was a Vorthok methane mining station orbiting a gas giant 3 systems away. The human assault ship was tiny compared to the massive mining platform, no bigger than an escape pod. It should have been destroyed by the station's defenses before it got close. Instead, the ship slipped past the sensors using modified Zenthari shield technology. The Zenthari had died, but their gift of defensive shields lived on in human hands. The human ship didn't fire weapons at the mining station. It simply opened its cargo bay and released millions of microscopic Earth bacteria into the station's methane processing system. Within hours, the bacteria began consuming the methane that the Vorthok needed to breathe. The mining station had to shut down and evacuate. More importantly, the bacteria spread to every ship that docked at the station, carrying the contamination to other Vorthok facilities. The Vorthok had never faced biological warfare. Their species had evolved beyond diseases millions of years ago. They had no idea how to fight something they couldn't see or shoot. At the same time, human infiltration teams struck at the Nexari quantum computer network. The Nexari were proud of their advanced computers that managed all faster-than-light communication for the Council. Their systems were so sophisticated that they thought no primitive species could possibly understand them. The humans didn't try to understand them. Instead, they introduced simple viruses that made tiny changes to the translation software. Military orders became dinner recipes. Coordinates for fleet movements became poetry about flowers. Emergency warnings became advertisements for human music. The Nexari technicians spent days trying to figure out why their perfect computers had started speaking nonsense. But the masterstroke came from Admiral Elena Vasquez and the Zenthari survivors on the ruined homeworld. Elena had been studying the data crystal Thekvar gave her before he died. Inside the technical specifications for Zenthari shield technology, she found something extraordinary. The Zenthari hadn't just been building defensive shields. Working with human engineers, they had discovered how to use their shield generators to affect the quantum structure of space itself. It was the same technology humans had been developing to save the Zenthari sun from burning out. "If we can stabilize a dying star," Elena said to her science team, "what happens if we destabilize a healthy one?" The answer was terrifying and beautiful. Elena took a small fleet back to the Zentalar system. The Zenthari sun was still dying, just as it had been for centuries. But now, Elena had a different plan for it. Using the combined shield technology and stellar engineering knowledge, her ships began bombarding the star with precisely tuned energy fields. They weren't trying to save it. They were trying to make it do something no natural star had ever done. The star began emitting a specific type of radiation that interfered with the quantum entanglement technology all Council ships used for faster-than-light travel and communication. At first, the effect was local, just the Zentalar system. But as the radiation spread through hyperspace at the speed of light, it created a growing bubble of interference that made Council technology useless. Hegemony fleets suddenly found themselves cut off from their command structures. Ships that had been jumping through hyperspace for thousands of years were suddenly stranded in normal space, unable to call for help or coordinate with other forces. Admiral Vorthok watched his fleet's communication systems fail, one by one. The quantum computers that managed everything from navigation to life support began showing error messages in languages his species had never seen. "What is happening?" he demanded from his bridge crew. "Unknown, Commander. All our quantum systems are failing. We cannot reach fleet command or navigate through hyperspace." Vorthok realized, with growing horror, that his massive fleet was now just a collection of individual ships, lost and alone in empty space near a human world that had vanished. Meanwhile, the stellar radiation continued spreading through the galaxy. Council worlds that had depended on instant communication for thousands of years suddenly found themselves isolated. Trade ships became lost between the stars. Military fleets scattered across hundreds of systems could no longer coordinate their actions. For the first time in galactic history, the ancient Council species experienced something humans knew well: the fog of war. The Council called an emergency session on their capital world, but half the representatives couldn't reach the meeting. Those who did arrive found chaos. Reports came in from across the galaxy of human attacks that made no military sense. Human ships had been spotted near agricultural worlds, but instead of bombing them, they had released swarms of earth insects that destroyed specific crops the Council species needed for medicine. Other human teams had infiltrated asteroid mining operations, not to steal resources, but to reprogram the mining robots to dig in patterns that spelled out, "Remember Zentalar," in letters visible from orbit. "They're not fighting to win territory," reported the Nexari military advisor. "They're fighting to make us afraid." "Impossible," declared the hegemony leader. "Humans are a young species. They don't understand real warfare." But they were wrong. Humans understood something the Council had forgotten during their long peace. Sometimes winning a war means making the enemy too tired and scared to keep fighting. As the stellar radiation spread further, more council systems went dark. Ancient trade routes became impossible to navigate. The sophisticated civilization that had ruled the galaxy for millennia began to crack and crumble. And through it all, human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, never staying long enough to be destroyed, always striking at the places that would cause the most confusion and fear. The Galactic Council had wanted to show humanity the price of defying ancient power. Instead, they learned what happened when a species that had evolved through constant warfare decided to teach civilization a lesson about violence. 6 months after the Zentalar massacre, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Council, that had ruled for thousands of years, was broken. Their fleets floated dead in space, unable to communicate or navigate. Their trade networks had collapsed. Their ancient certainty was gone. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in what used to be the capital city of Zentalar. But now, instead of ruins and ash, she saw something beautiful. Human engineers and Zenthari survivors had worked together to build a memorial garden where the government buildings once stood. Children played among the crystal flowers, both human children and young Zenthari who had been born after the massacre. They laughed together, speaking a mixture of human languages and Zenthari crystal song that created something entirely new. Elena touched the pendant around her neck. The crystal no longer pulsed with just her heartbeat. The surviving Zenthari had modified their technology so that all the honor crystals worn by humans and Zenthari alike beat in rhythm together. It was a network of hearts connected across the stars, proving that friendship could survive even genocide. Admiral Vasquez, called Commander Sekara, approaching through the garden. As the highest-ranking Zenthari survivor, she had become the unofficial leader of her people. The council representatives have arrived for the negotiations. Elena nodded. For weeks, different council species had been reaching out to request peace talks. The hegemony's power was broken. Most of their fleets were still stranded without working communication systems. The stellar radiation from the modified Zentalar sun continued to spread, making their advanced technology useless across larger areas of the galaxy. "Are they ready to accept our terms?" Elena asked. "They have little choice." The Vorthak lost half their population when the methane contamination spread to their homeworlds. The Nexari computer networks are still translating military orders into recipes for soup. And every day, more systems go dark as your stellar radiation spreads. Elena walked through the memorial garden toward the temporary meeting hall that had been built from both human and Zenthari materials. The negotiations would happen here, in the place where the Zenthari government had once stood, as a reminder of what the old council had destroyed. Inside the hall, representatives from 8 council species waited nervously. The 4 hegemony species looked defeated and angry. The other council members looked scared and confused. They had never imagined that their ancient civilization could be brought down by what they considered a primitive species. "Honored representatives," Elena began, "you have requested peace negotiations. But first, you need to understand what you're negotiating with." She activated a holographic display showing human space. "You thought you knew what humans were. You saw us as young, emotional, weak. You were right about young. We've only been in space for 50 years. You were right about emotional. We form strong attachments to our friends." The display changed to show Earth's history, wars, genocides, empires rising and falling. But you missed something important. Humans didn't become the dominant species on our world by being weak. We became dominant because our planet tried to kill us every single day, and we learned to kill it back. Elena's voice grew harder. Ice ages that lasted for thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, asteroid impacts that destroyed entire continents, predators that hunted us in the dark, diseases that killed half our population. And through all of that, we survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on our world. The council representatives shifted uncomfortably. They were learning things about humanity that their files had never mentioned. "When you murdered our friends, you made a fundamental mistake," Elena continued. You thought we would be afraid and submit. Instead, you reminded us what we really are. You woke up something that had been sleeping for 50 years of peace. 1. President Chen's image appeared on the display. Broadcasting from Earth. The old Galactic Council is finished. We will not restore it. Instead, we're creating something new. A federation based on cooperation, not domination. Species that join willingly are welcome. Species that try to rule over others will face the consequences. The senior Vorthak representative, Commander Zekmoth, floated forward in his portable gas chamber. You cannot simply end the Council. We have ruled this galaxy for too long. Elena cut him off. Your rule ended when you decided that genocide was an acceptable tool of politics. You are one young species. You cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy. Elena smiled, and the expression made several council representatives step back. Watch us. She activated another holographic display showing current galactic conditions. Your fleets are stranded without faster-than-light capability. Your trade networks have collapsed. Your colonies are running out of essential supplies. Most importantly, your people are learning that their ancient, powerful government couldn't protect them from humans armed with bacteria and computer viruses. The Nexari representative spoke up nervously. What do you want from us? Justice for the Zenthari. Full reparations to be paid to the survivors. Complete demilitarization of the hegemony fleets. And acceptance of the new Federation Charter. The Zenthari. Elena gestured to the memorial garden visible through the hall's crystal windows. You see those children playing together? Human and Zenthari. Learning from each other. Protecting each other. People sign B hard. 10C. That's what civilization really looks like. Not your rigid hierarchy, where the strong prey on the weak. Commander Zekmoth tried one more time. And if we refuse, then you continue to live in the galaxy we've created for you. No faster-than-light travel. No quantum communications. No coordination between your scattered worlds. Every time you try to rebuild your military power, we'll be there to remind you what happens to species that threaten peaceful people. Elena's voice became gentle, almost sad. You could have been our friends. The Zenthari were. But you chose to be our enemies. And now you're learning why that was a mistake. The negotiations continued for 3 days. In the end, the Council species had no choice but to accept human terms. The alternative was continued isolation and the slow collapse of their civilization. A month later, Elena stood once again in the memorial garden. A new monument had been completed, a crystal sculpture that told the story of Zenthari civilization, created by both human artists and Zenthari survivors. Young human students were learning Zenthari engineering while Zenthari children studied human military history. They were building something new together, something that honored both species. Elena friend, Sekara approached, carrying a small crystal device. This is a communication beacon, tuned to the new Federation frequency. It will be placed at every memorial world. Planets, where peaceful species were harmed by the old Council's violence. How many memorials will there be? Too many. But now, never again. Elena accepted the beacon and activated it. Across the galaxy, similar beacons began broadcasting the new Federation's founding principle. Never again shall the strong prey upon the weak in the name of order. Never again shall genocide be called peace. The message spread through space at light speed, carried by the same stellar radiation that had crippled the old Council's power. It was a promise and a warning to any species that might think about using violence against peaceful peoples. As the sun set over the memorial garden, Elena watched human and Zenthari children playing together. They wore crystal pendants that pulsed in unison, hearts beating as one across the stars. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was their willingness to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, and their complete refusal to let bullies rule through fear. President Chen had been right. Civilization wasn't about who was strongest. It was about who you chose to protect when you became strong. And humanity had made their choice clear to the entire galaxy.